Pixel Sift.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah from Pixel Sift, and today we are back on day 3 of PAX, and I have some very special guests that we're talking to today. We have Benjamin E. and Liam Esler from Summerfall Studios. Thank you so much for joining us. You've just announced your debut game, Chorus. Looks amazing. Can you tell us a bit about what Chorus is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chorus is what we call an adventure musical. It's one part interactive musical, one part adventure game, and one part dialogue and narrative character-driven experience. There's nothing quite like it out there, and we're really excited to share it with everyone.
Bad accident.
Now who's this come into my lair, delightfully unaware? Did no one tell you to avoid the home of those who lend a limb from bone?
So it's a game that is a musical adventure, and it's got romance elements, and you can choose parts of the songs that happen. How did you come to decide that this is the game that you wanted to make?
Right. So I decided that I wanted to start a studio after I stopped running Game Connect Asia Pacific, which is the Australian Game Developers Conference. And I wanted to get back into game development, but I knew that I didn't want to do it by myself. So I was talking to some friends about starting a studio, and I was talking to my friend David Gator, at GDC in the Game Developers Conference in 2017. And we started to talk about, what our dream studio would be. And there were eerily similar ideas. I think at one point Dave was like, did I tell you about what I want to do? And I was like, no. And he's like, they're basically the same thing. And so we started talking, and then at Games Week in 2017, we decided we'd take a day. We would take a day, we would spend the day together, and we would basically just grill each other on questions to see, did we actually want to do this together? And within a couple of hours, we'd already moved past that question onto what kind of game did we want to make? And we knew that we wanted to make something character and narrative driven. That's our specialty. We're both huge RPG nerds and have worked on a lot of different RPGs like Dragon Age and Pillars of Eternity and Baldur's Gate. And so we were trying to work out what different element could we bring. Narrative games obviously are a huge genre. They've done really well, but not as well over the past couple of years. And we both think that that's because nothing new has really been brought to the table. So at least in the marketing sense, there are some amazing narrative games out there, but they haven't been able to hit that mass penetration that Firewatch and Gone Home kind of got. So we were like, what might we be able to do that would be interesting to people? So we were throwing around ideas, and Dave was like, hey, when I was at BioWare, I actually pitched a piece of musical DLC for Dragon Age Inquisition. And I was like, well, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? And at first he was like, oh yeah, this would be my studio. I can decide that. Once he got over that, he was like, no, I want to make a musical. And I was immediately like, hell yes. I love musicals. That's basically how it started. And we immediately started to jump into what that might look like.
So Ben, as the art director, obviously the art plays a huge part of this, from the character design to the locales, just to the way the mood and the tone is conveyed. Obviously, it's a very visually focused game, as well as to supporting the songs and all that. How did you get involved as the art director initially?
I was literally just a planned brunch date. I think we just had a conversation, and you were saying that you really wanted to make this a thing, and I was totally on board already. And I was just I was pitching ideas on how we're going to represent song, mechanic, dialogue, situation kind of thing, and I was just coming up with ideas, and it was just really exciting to just sort of deal with it, and trying to mix the idea of just what musicals look like, cinematic and games and sort of stuff. Taking inspiration from stage lights and whatnot, and trying to tell a story, and trying to tell also the musical aspect is about emotional storytelling kind of thing. So it was a lot to do about how we can fully express magic and emotion together, and and that sort of thing, like dealing with that. Yeah.
So the setting is urban fantasy, and I think you've done an absolutely phenomenal job of, from what I've seen so far, of depicting the beautiful blend of, I guess, what we'd see as the normal with the supernatural together. How did you decide as a team on that being the setting, and how did you determine what you wanted the visual style to look like from that?
So in terms of the decision to set it in urban fantasy, I'm a huge urban fantasy nerd, but we knew that we wanted the songs to be, to use the technical term, diegetic. We wanted them to be in-world. We wanted it to be like, yes, the characters are actually singing, and people are going like, whoa, 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 what's going on? This person's like actually singing. So we needed an explanation for that. So that meant that there had to be some kind of fantastical element to it. And Buffy was a big inspiration for us, particularly Once More with Feeling, which was the musical episode, right? And so we were kind of playing around with that, and like, what might that feel like? What might that look like? And urban fantasy sort of just seemed like the natural answer. And it's an area that games hasn't well explored yet. We have Life is Strange, we have The Wolf Among Us. There are some games that have been urban fantasy, and they've done really well. But it's not a genre that we've really explored fully yet. So we were really keen to dive in and to sort of experiment and play with it. In terms of the visual style, I have to hand that to Ben, but
Whenever I've done mythology, it was also just like armor and fantasy sort of like elements and stuff. It was really interesting trying to translate what a god would wear in modern times if they tried to like semi blend in, but also semi show off that the fact that they're the god of the sun. What would you do? Yeah. So we came up with just like ideas of just sort of like a beach sort of outfit. Just open shirt kind of thing, because they're just like extremely hot, but they don't need super care about it or anything. So it's just like it's just an open shirt, and just kind of just like seeing it from the perspective of the characters and seeing what they would do. But yeah, it's been an interesting challenge trying to capture a larger than life sort of personality through modern clothing that would be acceptable, but also kind of just like, oh, okay,
I've been following the Twitter account when it was first announced, and I've been really enjoying, I guess, the teasers of the character designs and the character art you've been releasing. When I first saw Apollo, before I knew it was Apollo, I was like, oh, okay, it's got the open shirt look, like, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I mean, and then when it was like, oh yeah, so it's urban fantasy, this is Apollo, I was like, it's all comes together, all makes sense. But I really think you've done a fantastic job of nailing that. So are both of you big fans of musicals? Like, were there any major, I mean, I feel like it goes without saying, but I don't want to presume.
There were lots of musical inspirations. My degree was in theatre, and so from a very young age, I've done a lot of musical theatre. It's been a huge passion of mine. And so when we were initially talking about the idea, Dave's a massive musical nerd as well. So we were basically just comparing notes and giving each other homework, being like, go watch this, go listen to this, go listen to this. And there were a couple of days there where we just non-stop listened to every musical you could possibly imagine. I was exposed to a lot of musical theatre that I hadn't seen before. But in terms of influences, I think Into the Woods by Stephen Sondheim was a really big influence. We found out about Hadestown shortly after we came up with the core concept, and we were like, oh, this has a lot of similar elements. And so we watched that really closely, and I fell in love with Hadestown. It's absolutely wonderful. Hamilton, of course, as a really contemporary, fresh look at what a musical could be. Dear Evan Hansen, looking at, what music can do character-wise. There's been like a whole lot. And also Disney. Looking at Hercules, looking at other musicals from other companies like Anastasia, a whole lot. Also, I'm a massive fan of Steven Universe, and so looking at what Rebecca Sugar and Ivy Surashu have done with the songs there and how those songs are linked into the plot in really clever ways was really helpful for us in determining, how might these songs work in the world. And then, of course, we had the problem of, how do we make these playable? How do we make branching songs? How do we give information to the player in a way that feels natural and while still feeling like a good song and portraying the emotion that we wanted it to portray?
Yeah. For me, it was like I hadn't seen a whole lot of musicals. I was mostly just music that I've heard. I'm a big fan of Dear Evan Hansen. I'm listening to Beetlejuice a lot actually lately. But I took a lot of inspiration from stage production theaters and stuff that I've seen over my time. Like, just the idea of like how crazy creative you had to get to get some effects across while using just like physical cardboard props or whatever. But as well as that, like, so there was an element of trying to take inspiration from what was physically reality, but there was also elements of like how can we take it beyond to the point where the player would just be like, this is not a normal world kind of thing. And I took a lot of inspiration from music videos for that, actually. Just like watching a lot of K-pop videos, actually, and seeing the colors that they use in the abstract sort of like set pieces that they used as well. And that's where I got a lot of inspiration from.
So, jumping off your musical inspirations, were there any big game inspirations that you were looking to when you were in the early stages of developing, I guess, the idea for the game and the direction that you wanted to take?
Obviously, Dragon Age. When Dave and I were initially talking, we knew that we wanted to take the dialogue and narrative systems of Dragon Age. A lot of my background is working on, Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale and those old Infinity Engine games. So we were seeing, like, could we take that sensibility and pull it into a more modern, accessible format? In terms of the songs, we kind of knew from the get-go how they would work. We knew that we wanted them to branch just like dialogue, but feel really different. And it took a long time to get to the point where we felt like we had really kind of nailed how that might work and what it would feel like. There were lots of technical issues to overcome, like when writing lyrics, where do you give the player information in the verse versus, how long do you give them to make the decision? In terms of the music, like how much musical space do you need to provide for the player? And there was a lot of iteration, like really a lot. But yeah, we hit a place where we felt was really good.
Awesome. How exactly do you go about writing an interactive song, like a song where the player, I saw on the description of the game, as you progress through, the player has a lot of choice to determine, lyrics of the song, the tone of the song, how that shifts. How do you do that? Obviously, you've got a fantastic composer helping you formulate that, but that I think is the one big thing that struck me about the game.
With great difficulty, like that, trying to write interactive lyrics and song is a really complicated proposition. And we worked quite extensively with Austin to find a happy medium that felt good as a player, but also achieved the ends that we wanted for like a Broadway style song. There was, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of iteration on the way that we did that. The branching part was really easy for Dave and for me, because that's a lot of our backgrounds in branching dialogue, and it's very similar. Most of the difficulty was, we want the song to change depending on what stance or what trait the player picks. So you have kick-ass, you have clever, and you have charming. So if you pick a kick-ass option, like maybe the drums kick in, then like it's a more like powerful beat that drops in. And if you're going charming, maybe it'll pare back slightly, and the player's response will be a little bit more thoughtful and charming and, trying to subtly persuasive. And we wanted that to be reflected in the music. That's difficult when you're still trying to create a cohesive song that feels intentional from beginning to end. So it's taken, each song takes a long time to craft to make sure that it's this cohesive, really strong experience. So it's definitely hard. But that's part of the challenge, right? It's really fun to do something that not a lot of people, if anyone, has done before. And when we've spoken to songwriters, all of them have been like, oh shit, like, I don't know how I would do that. Because it's not just lyrics, it's dialogue lyrics. And, we're doing exposition in song as well. Like, it's a lot. And Broadway writers will be familiar with this, but we have to take it to this next step. And that's been a really fantastic challenge.
So I would love to talk about the voice talent as well. So Laura Bailey is the lead character as the voice of Grace, fantastic singing voice, wonderful voice actor. And Troy Baker, we all know Troy Baker, as the voice director, and will also be lending his singing talent as well, I presume?
We don't know yet.
To be determined.
So Troy's the voice director. I'm sure that we will probably hear his voice somewhere in the game. He is an amazing vocalist, stunning, and he has been crucially helpful in really determining how these songs are shaped. So while Dave and Austin and I will write the songs in the booth when we're recording, Troy will often sort of he'll play it back and he will be like, okay, but what about if we changed this here slightly? and it completely changes the course of the song. We were recording a song the other day, and he's like, okay, I have this crazy idea, like, bear with me. Laura, can you just try this, this, and this? And at first, Dave and I were like, ooh, that's a massive change. And it completely changes the rhythm of the song. And then we played it back and we were like, oh no, like, that's so much better. So Troy's able to bring this incredible songwriting sensibility as well as his vocal talent to really make sure that these songs are richly textured and emotive and really brilliantly performed. And working with Laura, someone who is so incredibly talented and has such fantastic instincts as an actor and performer, means that we can give these songs a real basis in emotion. Making sure the performance is there. And it's just been a treat. It's been amazing, yeah.
All right, I know this might be hard to believe. I'm not drunk or possessed, okay, a little naive. But this happened, I swear it happened. My life was normal until Calliope.
How did you go about sourcing these absolutely incredible voice actors?
So for chorus and for Summerfall, it all kind of happened very serendipitously. David and I have been, David's been in the industry for 20 years. I've been in the industry for 10 years. So we've been around a while. We've worked at a lot of different places. And so when we started to think about this game, we were talking to our friends about it, obviously. And one of my friends at the end of GDC in 2018 was talking to Austin Wintory at lunch, and I think Austin must have mentioned something about working on a musical, like he really wanted to do it. And my friend was like, hey, you should go talk to these guys. So I received this, I'm at lunch. It's the end of GDC, it's Friday. And I get a message from Austin Wintory, of all people, being like, hey, I'm leaving on a plane in a couple of hours. Like, can you come to Yerba Buena Gardens and hang out and catch up? I really want to talk to you about your project. It sounds amazing. So I was like, okay. And so ran off to Yerba Buena so that I could catch him. And we started talking, and it was immediately obvious that we were on the same page. When you meet somebody and you start talking and there's just that, I hate this word, but synergy, there's like that, there's just a spark. And so I started to talk about the game, and Austin was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I imagine blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, yeah, like exactly like that. So from that first conversation, we knew this was going to be the right person for us to work with on chorus. And Troy came in through Austin. They're really great friends and have often talked about wanting to work on a musical together. And so when we were doing our initial song demos and our experimentation, Troy helped out by lending vocals. And one day, David and I were talking in the office thinking, he's in Edmonton, I'm in Melbourne. Our recording's going to be in LA. It's going to be really hard for us to be in every session. We really need a voice director. And I swear to God, within an hour, we get a call from Troy Baker, completely unprovoked, being like, hey, so I've been thinking, do you need a voice director? This project is really cool and I really want to be a part of it. And we were like, yes. And we'd literally talked about him earlier that day, just saying hey, someone Troy Baker would be great. And so, it was a really incredible sort of, serendipitous experience of coming together of these creative minds. And everyone who's joined the project has lent something different and special and kind of course corrected in a different way. It's been a real merging of minds. And Laura is a good friend of Troy's. And so, we asked her to come on board as the protagonist, and she was immediately like, yes, just tell me where to go. And working with her has been such an amazing experience as well.
So what are your goals for this game as a studio and as individuals?
To put out something that's really different and new, and to, we announced Chorus on Friday, and immediately responses started rolling in of people saying, it's like this game was made for me. And to them I say, that's because it was. Dave and I have talked a lot about the kind of games that we want to make. We know they want to be really character-driven, story-driven, and they're for a specific kind of person, somebody who loves narrative games, somebody who is really attached to characters, who loved the romances in Dragon Age, somebody who loves Life is Strange because of the interactions between the characters. And we wanted to create something that for that audience, because they're not always the primary target for games. In many games, they're like the secondary audience or the tertiary audience. And we feel that it's really important to create something for people directly, because we're part of that audience too. And so hearing that from people has just been incredibly validating. We're really, really excited to be able to create this game for them. And we hope to continue doing that in the future.
As the artist, Ben, what are your goals, I suppose, for the art of the game? I guess the final art, the final direction, imagine the game at release. What are your goals for how the direction and I guess the reception, what you want people to get out of the art?
Right. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is like diverse representation in video games and stuff. I don't see a lot of myself in a lot of characters lately, and it's just really important for me to, we're making games for the audience that feel like they're not being shown enough of what they're interested in, kind of thing. And like this is an opportunity for me to really go through all the characters and be like, why not this instead? Why can't we have more bodies like this? Why can't we have more skin like this? And it's just like I really want to take Chorus in the direction where we can explore and we can navigate this sort of space together and really make it shine and have people feel like they belong in this world and realize that world's a big place, and Chorus is definitely an opportunity to show how many different stories we can tell, kind of thing, and then and totally represent some underrepresented people, and in terms of like the rest of the art direction, it's important for me to really push past. I'm a big fan of color.
Oh, don't we know it? If anyone has seen Ben's art, it's very, very good.
I'm a big fan of color, and I'm a big fan of emotional sort of storytelling. And what better way to have emotional storytelling than have the Prince King of Heartbreak, David Gator, break your heart, with all these like hard stories and emotional stories. And I'm just like, I want to help you, David Gator. I pledge my allegiance to you,
Can't wait to have my heart broken. by David Gator.
yeah. But like, it's been an opportunity to really accentuate a lot of colors and see how many different ways I can really push the buttons of emotional, sort of bigness. I can't think of many words.
So the game is currently available with crowdfunding. So you're currently on Fig. Yep. It's the website. What is the URL for at the moment?
Yep. So the URL to support Chorus is fig.co/chorus, fig.co/chorus. We would really appreciate any support that anyone can provide. We think it's a really important project. We're incredibly passionate about it, and we hope that everyone else is too.
Thank you both so much for coming here to talk to us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoy the rest of PAX, and I wish you all the best in a very successful crowdfunding of Chorus, and I'm very excited to see how the game evolves over time.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks so much.